on my yes, now hello everyone. I was saying on my Facebook event we are at our third episode with Artist Talk, and I'm really pleased to have with us Justin Mortimer. Hi Justin,
Hello,
from
everyone.
yeah,
Morning.
a really dear friend and amazing artist from UK, and we're gonna have a chat with him about painting and the practice of painting, which I know he loves to talk about it because he was in our department like 3 years ago with the occasion of the exhibition of our colleague Marius Bercha. So we spent like 2 days together and you visit our department. And I remember you were quite interested with talking with the students, like extensive. and
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very important and endlessly fascinating. You know, I was
so,
very struck. Well, I was saying to you earlier on, just how marvelous I thought your art school was, and just how intensive I thought the artists, that the students were working there. Very, very intensive, very, very serious, and I I really enjoyed that. Yeah. It, was, it smelt like an art school, you know. It had the paint. It was just yeah.
yeah.
Because I think now when I visit art schools in the UK, everything is very digital. A lot of maybe now more painting is coming in, and more younger artists are more interested in painting again. But certainly, a few years before, British art schools were they were more like laboratories.
Oh,
Whereas I felt when I visited Cluj in 2017, the art
so
school was like art schools have always been somehow. It's yeah,
it was smelling of turpentine, right, and linalool.
yeah, 10%, yeah, yeah. And I love the way everyone was so pressed together. I mean, maybe that's not great for the students having so little space, but somehow that intensified the activity of making work, and students were able to look around them and see what else was what their neighbors were doing, and it just fed into this energy, you know. Yeah, I loved it. And also, I
Yeah,
love the fact that I love the fact you had a life model there still. You know, you don't see that so much now. So that was great.
since we
Yeah.
are talking about being in school and you remembered your going through school, I wanted to ask you how. But just before this, just before I'm putting my first question, I want to say that everyone should come into our dialogue and prepare questions.
Okay.
Justin is here for everything we have in mind, like questions, just get it on. I'm gonna just in a few moments I'm going to also make a presentation, to see his works and why we are talking. You can also put the question in the chat or directly with the voice. Well, I was saying that so you went into school, art school, right? And for how many years did you went there?
I went to art school aged 18, which was quite young, really. And I was there for 4 years. And
four
that
years
was that was, yeah, and that's an undergraduate course. So I didn't do a master's. In fact, I applied for a master's at the Royal Academy School in London, and I got rejected. So, which was actually really good because it meant that I was able just to get a studio very quickly and start working as an artist at the age of 22. And I just approached it quite seriously and thought, this is my job now. You know? And I had to work hard to survive. And at the time, I won a portrait competition when I was 21 in London, and part of the prize was to have painting of a famous person put on the wall of the National Portrait Gallery. And so that was like a poster for my work, if you like. I was able to, it was like advertising my skills as a portrait painter, which wasn't something I wanted to do, but I was able to sell the portraits and make money and pay the studio rent. So that's kind of how it all started, really. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was my question, but you answered it already. Like, what
Sorry.
was
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because our students, like, they do 3 years of work, and then another 2 weeks, 2 years of master, and probably
Okay.
PhD for another 3 years. But at
Yeah.
the end, they have to go out in the world. So that was what I was
Mm,
meaning to
mm.
ask you, to ask you that what was the first thing you do once you found yourself out there in the world, and you
Well,
just
certainly what we all did as students to begin the journey was we entered every single art competition that was available to us. We used to go through art magazines and look in the back for all the competitions that were available for open submission. You'd maybe pay £5 or £10 to enter your picture, and often you'd get rejected. But now and again, we would get accepted. And as a group of artists, we often used to walk together to the galleries and give the work and attend the exhibitions and speak to everyone. And that's kind of, it gives you that bit of confidence,
also you
you
had
know.
a group of friends, artist friends, who you were hanging out back then.
Yeah, of course, and that's a very, very important part of further education and art school, isn't it? It's the cohort. It's your group you're with, which you feed off and question and fall in love with and throw ideas around with. That was very, very important, and it kind of sustains you through the difficult times. And interestingly, a lot of us are now back in contact again as we've all hit about 50. We're all now becoming 50 years old, and we're all meeting again on Zoom and things like that. It's kind of
Oh,
quite
really? So
funny.
you're still in
Yeah,
contact with that.
yeah, very much so. Yeah, yeah. And some people have some amazing careers. Most people don't have any career at all, and some are doing well. So it's quite a high rate of failure art school education, realistically, as we all know. Many people have found it very, very difficult to sustain a life as an artist. Having said that, a lot of people I was at college with diversed into art related jobs like filmmaking and directing, TV, that kind of thing. Not everyone was a painter. It's just a few of us managed to live as painters, but not many. It's because I was able to do the portraiture, which I explained earlier, that enabled me to continue this life. Yeah.
That's what I like about you and your practice that we're going to talk about, because you're the kind of painter who goes every day. Of course, now you are with the lockdown in England, there's been a pause, but you moved a
But
little bit of
certainly,
your studio in
yeah,
your home, so it's kind of the same
yeah,
thing. But you're the kind of artist who goes every day in the studio
mm,
and takes it as a daily part of your life. So I was
yeah.
wondering, do you have, like, I don't know, some little things you do before you get started, or something that gets you in the
Yeah,
mood, or you just go in your studio and
yeah,
stick
massive,
to your
massive
canvas?
distraction. Yeah, yeah, massive distraction things like making coffee, sharpening pencils, and yeah, putting off the hour for actual painting. It's amazing how many jobs I have to do before I actually commit to making some work. It's funny. Um, I mean, yeah, it takes me about an hour to travel to my studio every day because my studio's in South London. I'm in North London,
Uh,
so I travel on the underground, and it gives me that time to think about what I'm going to do. You know.
you do the thinking on the way then.
Kind of, yeah, I do. And also, when I leave the studio of an evening, I have an hour. I have a buffer zone between my art life and my home life. And in that time, I can decompress. The ideas and thoughts can wash away from me. So I'm not bringing the angst back home. So going to the studio, I will invariably get there about 10 o'clock in the morning every day, and I might do some collaging first. I quite often do digital collaging, which I've explained. But
Yeah,
I
we're
talk
going to talk
about,
about that
yeah, yeah.
further.
That's become quite a big part of what I do. because I'll come in and I'll see a big painting on the wall as I walk in, and that's my first. It's the first time I've seen that painting since I've been to bed, and in the night before, I might have left that painting, been quite pleased with myself, thinking I nailed it there. And of course, you come in the morning and go, Jesus Christ, what an absolute horror show! Who was I? Who was I fooling? You know, and that's quite important. That instant moment. So I will address that. I will either scrape it off or think about it. I might photograph it on my camera, and then maybe I might put that photo into my computer and then play around with it on Photoshop. Certainly, in the past, I would make a print. I'd make a paper print of that painting and maybe play around with it and just kind of create a map, an idea of where I want to go with that painting in the day. And that's kind of how I do it.
This is really interesting. So you kind of do a checkup of your work from the earlier day.
Interesting expression.
Using your camera and transferring the image into your computer and maybe play a little bit with it and to see what happens if you go in one direction or the other, or
yes.
So yes. Because
it's very useful, but it's also it's very seductive, the digital technique, but it can be quite corrupting as well, because of
course, what way corruptive?
It's not reality. You're not really dealing with the plastic, the painting in front of you. It's almost cowardice in some respects. I mean, it saves wasting paint, I suppose, but I have to make sure I don't do it for too long, because you can collage and doodle around on a computer forever and end up with nothing. So I have to stop myself and go, right, now I do the painting, and I have to be able to. I need to be painting for at least 4 hours before I get to that zone. You know what you all know what I'm talking about. You have to get to that point where your brain is thinking in a completely new way, and everything else, time has kind of drifted. And you might have some music on studio, which I do sometimes with headphones. And it's that little moment of clarity after about 3 or 4 hours of work, where you have maybe 2 or 3 hours of lucidness. Do you know that word? Kind of clarity and lucidness. And then it will fade away. So by about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening, I'm clearing up, I'm washing my brushes, and I'm going home. That's it. That's kind of how it works. So I tend to do my best work late in the afternoon, actually. Whereas I know a lot of artist friends of mine have to be in the studio 9 o'clock, painting by 10. And that's when they're freshest and they do their best work. I can't do that. I need time to really warm up, like a long distance runner, maybe. It's, maybe.
Yeah, it's an endurance then.
It is, isn't it? It is. Yeah. When I've been on holiday, I find working really difficult because my stamina has dropped. My energy to sustain painting for hours on end is gone. It's gone. My arm even hurts. I'm like, wow, is that how much a brush weighs?
Well, in holidays, you have to have a good time, so
that's right.
Demanding.
That's it. That's it.
It takes a lot of energy to do this.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Just, you said you wash your brushes after each session of painting?
Mostly, yeah. Mostly.
Oh, so you really like to take care of your stuff?
I do, because I really hate walking in the morning and clearing up all the crap. I can't stand it. I hate that. I want to walk in and I've got clean newspaper on my palette, next to my palette. I've got the brushes are drying. I cleaned last night. So it makes it as easy as possible for me just to start again. If I've just got all the rubbish lying around, I can't do it. But there we go. Some people, that's just me. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was wondering, so you need a kind of a logical space in which, or the space need to have a little bit of logic before you go into the chaos of ideas?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah,
so at least the brushes should be right then, right?
exactly.
If you're entering the unknown field of the painting, at least the brushes should know their place,
Yeah, the
right?
brushes know what they're going to do. Yeah. I mean, it's been weird running two studios now because my studio I'm at home now in my lockdown studio because we're in a second lockdown again. So I'm painting upstairs in a small room. So, but I've got all my best brushes are upstairs, and then this afternoon I'm allowed to travel to my studio, and I can't. I'm having to have because we all have our favorite brushes, our favorite palette knives. There's only one of those. So I can't decide where to keep them. Do I keep them in my lockdown studio? Do I keep them in my London studio? I don't know. I can't decide. It's weird. And I'm buying a lot of paint now because I'm having to have two sets of paints, That's getting really expensive. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
What would it be your favorite brush? What's that?
Well, I've got some amazing brushes that are really, really old because they just don't make brushes like this anymore. I'm going to have to ask some professional brush makers to make them for me. And I've tried to track them down. They're kind of that when I first had them, they were, I mean, this is a pencil, but so I had the shaft of the brush, and then on top of the metal bit, they were very long and thin and flat, oil paint brushes, and they don't make them like that. Mostly brushes are about that short, aren't they? Or depending on their
Yeah,
width, they're not
yeah,
very long. And I did a whole series of paintings where I could get really long, beautiful liquid brush marks, and you just don't see those brushes. You just don't. And I go to well, before the whole COVID thing, I'd be doing a bit of traveling. So when I was abroad, say in Berlin, I'd go to this very famous brush shop in Berlin, for instance, which some of you may know. Or in Brussels, there's some really good brush shops. London has some really good brush shops as well. But I've never found them like that before. And also, there was a lady who lived next door to me here in London, and her husband used to be a scene painter in the films back in the 50s and 60s, and he died, and she gave me a lot of his old brushes, which must have been made in the 1940s, and I still use those. They're kind of splintering and breaking down now, but I love those. And without going on too much about brushes, one thing I love about brushes are the really old ones that are broken and dirty and messy. I don't like new brushes
oh,
particularly. I like the ones that are splintered and create quite a dirty, corrupted mark. Yeah,
so you
they're
like
the ones
brushes
I
with the history?
Yeah, brushed with the history and yeah.
No, but
I mean,
sorry, I just
I
want
paint
to
with
say this.
I paint with loads of things. Paint with crazy things,
Uh,
chopsticks, washing up brushes, anything. Yeah,
because I think it's important for students to know your this part of being interested about materials, because as you
mm,
explained about these brushes, so there is a link, right, between the marks, the things you can do on your painting with just a specific paint kind of brush. So that brush gives you the
yeah,
opportunity to, you
yeah.
know, to make not a better painting, but to reach directly, more in a more directly way, to an idea you have. So a tool
Yes,
can give you that. So this is why it's important for you to have a certain type of brush, because,
that's right. That's
right?
right. Because you know that I'm a painter that's interested in surfaces and different substances to
Exactly.
render. So all my brushes will reflect that. I will have brushes which make certain marks for reasons, either to describe that surface. So whether you're stippling something, or you want a liquid brush, or you want something that's very fine, or you want something that's soft, so you can um, create edges that aren't too hard and blending. Sometimes you want a brush to make a very open, rough mark. And I need many of those to make. So I have hundreds and hundreds of brushes, for that exact reason. They all have their roles. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I'm gonna go to sharing screen. I'm gonna say hi also to my colleague Andrei Ciurdărescu. He's here. You've also met back in
Yes, I
Italy.
I have. I remember.
You remember?
Hi.
So, because we are talking about already about the images you are creating. So I'm gonna go to Instagram, the famous Instagram.
Okay.
You all see my screen, right? And now you're seeing Justin's Instagram page, right? Confirm this to me.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is just a glance of of the
Yeah.
brushes, right?
That's a few of them. Yeah, that's about a third of them, I'd say. Of the small ones. Yeah.
This will take quite a while to wash. Then
I tell you what, before I built that wooden thing, they're all in. I used to have them in old cans, and it always knocked them off.
Mm.
And it would take me ages just putting them all back in the cans. So yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. That's why they're there. Yeah.
This is better. This is the box.
And my palette there is just an old door that I'm painting on.
What? This?
Yeah, that's an old, Formica, like a kitchen door, a kitchen cupboard door. And I found it in the street. In fact, I've had that one since I was a student. Then underneath that is a sheet of glass, which I also paint on. But for a particular paint, I have palettes for different reasons, So I have brushes for different reasons. I have palettes for different reasons. So sometimes I paint off a white palette, and sometimes I paint off a green palette. And also I have wooden palettes that I carry, old-fashioned style. Yeah. And
you use that for what? The wooden palette?
If I want to be moving around a lot. These are the picture you've got up now is when I was painting at home, and you'll notice that the paint is all on the left-hand side because I was painting with my left hand there. I'm a right-handed painter. That's my left hand. So that was when I was painting when I broke my hand. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about this little detail. I was meaning to ask you about this later, since you brought it up right now. Interesting fact, right? About our guest here today. He broke his arm during this pandemic, right?
I broke my hand. It was my hand. Yeah.
When did it happen, Justin?
In May.
In May. So.
And unfortunately, I was working towards an exhibition that is now coming to an end in Korea. So it's a big exhibition with 29 paintings. Most of the work had been done, but I made 15 paintings for the show, including this one you're showing. And during the period of painting those, I stupidly broke my hand, which was a total disaster. And actually, I broke this bone here, all along here, and I have this finger now has minimal movement, and it has affected the way I paint a little bit, I have to say. But I've been doing a lot of exercises on it, and you'll find me always doing this. I'm always stretching this ligament that comes all the way down.
Well, as artists, we depend on our limbs, right, to be able to paint.
Yeah, we see this blue.
Of course.
Exactly. You see this blue face here, the top of the screen on the right-hand side. You see that? Oh, it's gone. Yes. That one, yeah. See that? That was the first picture I did with my left hand.
So how was it?
You can see I have no control there at all. It was total chaos. It was like learning from the start all over again. Yeah.
So this was what happened. You need to learn again how to control your hands to be able to.
Yeah.
Because you are a pretty realistic painter, not on the whole surface of the canvas, but you have some spots where you really define the texture and the form and the volume, and so you kind of need to move all your hand muscles. How was it to move on to work with the other side of your brain, basically?
Yes, it was very, very tricky. It was very, very difficult. But I will say that I had to do it for like 2 or 3 months, and by the end, I really did improve. I could really feel it changing in me. I could feel a kind of a power growing in me. Maybe it was the neuron starting to reconnect.
Yeah.
That's a left-handed picture, so I'm starting to feel a bit.
Yeah. Well, the brain.
But then I have painted this guy before, so I was. I kind of knew this guy's head. I've painted this guy about 3 times now. And so I kind of knew I had a muscle memory.
So the brain already did the work, only the hand you had to.
That's well said. That's well said. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. The brain knew what to do, on the hand wasn't really.
Well, this is what was so extraordinary. Maybe you should all try it later on. But when you literally can't do I couldn't do anything with this hand. So even opening a can or you can't do it with one hand. I had to find ways to do it. Even squeezing out paint was tricky. And so your brain knows exactly what to do, but your hand is really not doing it. And it's quite incredible to see how badly your hand moves when you're trying to. I couldn't decide, do I start from this way? When you see people, maybe some of you out there are left-handed and you're used to it, but you write in that way. I didn't know how to hold my brush. I didn't know which way to pull the brush mark. I couldn't. Very strange.
Maybe we should all do an experiment like this in the painting studios when we meet, and we will send you the photographs. Do the same
That'd
image
be very interesting.
with the left hand and with the right hand, with all our students, and then see the results.
I think all students should do it, definitely. And I think
This
people would talk.
Justin, we are just announcing my next team to my students from the second year. Beware, my students. So our next team will be this experiment with painting something. We'll figure out what with the other hand. I have two. Both my kids are left-handed. I don't know where from. We don't have anybody in our history of family history works with with left hand, but they're both left-handed. So
fascinating. Right.
Yeah, I will try it too.
I think you should make a very complicated proposition, like a raccourci or something. Full size.
A left-handed raccourci. What do you say, Justin? Okay.
Yeah, go for it. It's got to be done. It'll be very, very annoying. To only make it of interest, you've got to do it for quite a long time. But it might be also, it'll open your eyes to see how much skill your proper hand has learned. And it might be worth breaking it down a little bit to see that.
Well, in the end, this experience taught you something about painting. You think you understood something you didn't before?
Yeah, I certainly realized you get used to the marks that you've learned how to make over years. You get you're almost a cliche of yourself. So to have an opportunity to break through that a bit. I mean, this is a left-handed picture, for instance, you've shown. To suddenly be more aware of how the paint moves, because I'm an artist who's learned how to control paint quite carefully, and to actually find out what paint does when you can't control it was very beneficial. You understand? I was able to let the materiality of the paint do its thing without my control. It was much more like a musician going freestyle, or like that. It's much more jazz-like, or a intuitive, instinctive approach to making art rather than controlling it. And sometimes to break down the control and the skill is a very, very good thing. I mean, throughout art school and later, people have always been telling me to break down what I've trained myself to be good at. It's very good to undo certain habits that you've created for yourself. So that was educational for me, And I could see that there's this whole bandwidth, this whole breadth of mark making that is available to me through my left hand. And I did seriously think about painting with both hands on paintings. And I did try that, painting with both left and right, bring something new into the work. Freshness. Yeah.
So you managed to finish the painting for your Korean show?
Yeah, I finished. Well, I got to a point where I just couldn't finesse the paintings. You had to let them stay at that level. For instance, the one you have on the screen now, it's only about 1 meter high. and the detail, yeah, you see. So that's in my spare room. So you can see how, in fact, that doesn't matter. So that actually made the poster for the exhibition, which is quite funny. So that painting, which is quite small, was made into a banner, a poster, which is about 15 meters wide in Korea. It's huge. So that was quite funny, seeing all the paint spatters and all the, from my tiny room in North London to this huge banner in South Korea. It's very funny.
And probably you are the only one who knew the history of the image, of the painting.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That hand thing and everything.
But I deeply regret breaking the hand. It's going to cause me trouble now for the rest of my life, so I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah.
Well,
it's been a crazy period.
I'm not gonna ask you what happened, but I imagine it was.
Yeah, I just got angry. I just lashed out at a wall, and because I'd been ill, there was anxiety here. It was bad time, and yeah, so I just got angry one day and punched a wall, and I punched it too hard. Yeah. In fact, my brother's a surgeon, and he specializes in hands. Yeah, and it's a classic macho injury. It's classic.
Oh. And he said, Justin, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Well,
crazy stuff.
People, I wanted to, if you have questions for Justin, to go on, because I'm putting this next question for Justin, and then if you want to, you can join the discussion on the chat or live. But until then, Justin, I wanted to ask you, because you have, what is your relationship with photography? And not just photography as, you know, as a medium, because photography for you, it's a medium, it's part of the process. So tell me about this. How do you use it? Why?
Firstly, I'm a spectacularly bad photographer, which is probably a good thing. I have absolutely no control. I'm very, very poor at composing in the camera lens. I just take snaps, you know, just really, really quickly. I mean, these are photographs of my professional photographer shooting the work. So these lamps aren't mine. These are his. Yeah. So, I mean, I tend to use photographs which I find in magazines or on the internet. I prefer other people's images, really, which I then collage, because it gives me a distance somehow. I mean, when I try to use I do use my own photographs a lot, of course. I mean, I don't use anyone else's all the time. But also I like the language, the visual language of it. I bring to the work. So, for instance, the old-fashioned flash photography. I love the way it bleaches out surface and makes volume kind of collapse, and you're just left with the line, the drawing, if you like. You know? So I do look for those type of images, and I have bought actual photographs off eBay, old vintage photographs, which I have used, especially a lot of the paintings I was making maybe 8 years ago. I was buying photographs off eBay of wounded soldiers and things like that, which then became part of a lot of the work I was showing in America of broken limbs and surgery and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember.
Plus, I was taking photographs in hospitals. Yeah, and I was taking my own photographs in hospitals as well. I mean, there was a lot of paintings of X-ray machines, which were X-raying me at the time, which I was photographing and then putting back into the work. So there's a lot of that which I use. I am photographing things a lot, but because I'm actually not that interested in making photographs. In fact, I would say I'm not. But I do like the visual language of it. And along with a lot of other artists, we are trying to navigate our way through this huge world of photography. I mean, look, this is me putting up a show of all my collage work. It's all photographic based, you can see, but deeply manipulated. Yeah. So it's a very, very good tool. But the thing is, when I was at art school, I mean, my art teacher at school, and I mean that when I was a schoolboy, and then my art teacher in art school, it was absolutely the thing to do. You did not work from photography. It was absolutely almost unlawful in their world. You know, you couldn't do that. You had to work from life all the time. Observation, and imagination, which is absolutely important. And in some ways, I deeply respect that. But when I went to art school at 18, we just had a life model sitting in a chair for a whole term. And I thought, this is absolutely boring. I cannot connect with this. There's no essence of life here. There's no energy. So I started to collect and paint from sort of pop magazines and fashion magazines in about 1989, 1990, stuff like that. Interesting. I've got a big memory of, you know, well, of course, you'll remember the Romanian orphan, this sort of debacle that came out in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
In the news?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And and there were photographs, very famous photographs in the media. And I remember starting to paint from one of those photographs of a child in their cot. And my tutor at college was deeply shocked that I should be doing this. I didn't understand it at the time, but in a way she was saying I wasn't allowed to work from this, partly because it's a photograph, but actually more importantly, it morally somehow I couldn't just use this image for my own validation. It was not allowed, you know. It's just I couldn't. It was voyeurism in her mind, me using this image. So that's that was an important lesson to use. So if I do use photographs, I want to manipulate them a lot because it has to take a big journey from the source material. Otherwise, it's not interesting.
Yeah,
in fact,
they just start.
In fact, this week,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I realized I forget that. You know, I mean, for instance, I was trying to paint some portraits of Kathy, my partner, here at home, based on photographs that I took of her in the evening. And I was painting them all weekend. And I realized it was pointless because I hadn't made a journey far enough away from the original photograph. Even though I was changing the colors and the position, it still wasn't enough. So, yeah, my relationship with photography is
I also
it works. It works when I'm distant from it. Yeah.
You also have all this. I've seen it on your photographs as I see it more as sketches from which you depart to your painting. But you also have, I know what that is, but I want you to tell the students more. Where was that paint? Yes. Most of them, you have this, yes, but on many of them, I've seen this this kind of how do you call this in English? Everyone.
What do you mean? This smoke? This smoke thing?
No, the geometry. The grid.
Oh, the grid. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, the grid. It's very simple. It's just purely for me to know if I was to make a painting. Well, what I do, I grid the canvas, and then I'll make a print for that canvas with the exact dimensions. So I'll grid it up just for ease of transposition, so ease of so I know where the mark is. So that square there relates to that same square on the canvas. So I just know where everything is very, very quickly. It's so I can get the paint up very quickly. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that because
that's all it is.
Yeah, this technique is also used when you want to make a small picture to adapt it to a wider surface, like on a wall, for example.
Right, exactly.
Kind of a grid. So it's kind of maintaining a structure, right, for you.
That's right. It maintains a structure and it maintains the right ratios and all that. Yeah.
To not get away too much from the initial, idea, or
Yeah, it's quite controlling, isn't it? Yeah, it's not freestyle, that's for sure. Yeah. But also importantly, because as I was saying, when I go into the studio, I make a collage of the painting every day or whatever. What happens when I work is that I will start the painting with which I've gridded up from that first collage. But then invariably, I will alter the painting so that grid becomes very useful when I put the next layer on, which often will come from a different collage. But if that grid is always the same, I know where the new marks will go on top, because I do like the first layer showing through areas of the top layer. They're multiple layered paintings as well as the collages. The paintings go through a long journey of change. So the original collage is often quite different to where the painting ends up. I'm sure you will experience that.
Yeah, and we can all see like the images you are making on the computer, and then the result in painting. It's of course very, very different. But that's why I was asking, because it's a very interesting process.
Yeah, the painting has to live as a painting. The paint has to really live. I mean, all these pictures you're putting up are based on photographic collages, but the paint has to really have a life of its own, and that's just through me painting quite quickly and letting drips and messes. I'm using a palette knife a lot. I paint with a palette knife to just push the paint over the surface and keep it really active. Because a lot of people make the mistake of working from photographs. They become very, very dead
and
they
flat.
become very static. Yeah, because all the answers are there for you, so you have to corrupt that all the time. Otherwise, you'll end up with a pointless piece of art, really.
I like the idea of corrupting the image, the painting, the photography.
Oh yeah,
it's an interesting concept.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look, also here I can see the grid. Actually, I really like it.
Yeah.
It kind of gives a sense of, I don't know, a graphic flavor to it. I also really like after you started that.
Interesting. People.
What? Sorry.
No, you carry on.
Yeah. No, I was remembering that after you went back in 2017, right, when you were in Cluj, and you started this series of painting with hawks. I think it was called hawks, right? With the flower.
Oh, hoax. Yes.
Sorry,
hoax.
Series. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's pronounced hoax. Yeah.
Hoax.
That's right. I did. I spent about 2 years painting lots of flowers. Yes, it was.
Well, dead flowers, actually.
It was very, very. Yeah, they were dying.
Yeah.
Okay, do I paint directly on photographs? No, never. Someone just asked me. Yeah, I don't ever do that.
Yeah, what I was. This is also related to photography. They have a strong sense of reality, and like you were using a photographer style, of flash of light.
Totally, yeah.
But
yes, it was very important for me to make these look quite photographed. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, because this, even if as a technique, is really, really interesting and really, I
can tell you all about them.
The way you are able to capture that sense of light. I'm gonna find those. Where are those? Here. Yeah.
The whole series started as I mean, this one here is really, really big. So that's about 2 meters. 2.5 meters wide, maybe. That one, yeah, because most of the first pictures I did were very small. They were only about this big, so about 50 by 40 or whatever centimeters. And the whole approach, I just wanted to change the way I was thinking. So what I did, I started to think with this very strong abstract beginning to the. So I would just put a canvas on the floor. I bought cheap acrylic paint and some less cheap acrylic paint because I was going to waste a lot, and I just threw paint at the surface of the canvas, which was great fun. It was really liberating, you know. And I used big squeegees to move and manipulate the paint on the surface on many, many layers. This is just the background.
Mm-hmm. We can see it
And
here.
then I would photograph. Yeah, and then I would photograph dying flowers. And the first dying flowers I photographed was when I was in France, in Normandy, on holiday, and I went into a church and I photographed these tiny flowers that had been left to die in a dark corner in an old jam jar, you know, and the water had all gone really dark green and disgusting, but in fact very, very beautiful. This whole little world inside this green, you know, the flora and fauna with these wilting flowers, and there was something very pathetic and moving about this. And because I was in a dark church, I used my camera flash, which created this very, very dark outline, which I just loved, you know, and it changed the look and the surface of the flowers. The petals became quite alien looking. And then of course you blow them up quite large. And I would just paint them on top of these abstract backgrounds. And sometimes I would leave areas missing. I really liked the interaction between the abstract and the very, very, in this painting here you're showing now, that's a very, very big one. That's huge as well. So I was bringing in new techniques there as well. So I was using spray guns as well here. So the whole series was very, very exciting to me because it allowed me to be much more playful and much more imaginative and bring in techniques that I'd never used before. So that was really good. So I did that work for about 2 years, and I'm just starting to withdraw from the flowers, even though I could paint flowers forever. But in fact, I felt I wanted to somehow bring this abstract language back into my figurative work, but I haven't worked out how to do that yet. I haven't found the solution because I've done a few small ones that work quite well, but I'm trying to think now. This painting you're presenting on screen is.
This is beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, this is 213. So it's 2 meters by just under 2 meters. Yeah, so it's 2
Quite
meters.
big.
It's quite big, yeah. So the flower area is about that large. So it's about the size of, yeah. And I want to know if I'm able to bring figures into paintings like this now. I haven't worked. That's my challenge to myself, you know.
So this is the challenge for your
yeah,
next.
because I mean, I've painted walls, I've painted floors, I've painted chairs, I've painted lamps with figures in. I'm wondering, can I put the figures into this more abstract space, or can I even approach the figures in a more abstract way now? I don't know. I'm pulled in two ways because I'm really interested in rendering a reality, but I'm also really interested in this clash that happens. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because seeing on Instagram, they seem smaller. Actually, they're really big. So this makes an even harder.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's right. It's very strange.
Yeah, and dismantling your technique is even harder if you think they're this big. But look, here's a close-up, and you could see that you use a lot of brush strokes and a lot of type of brushes, and it's the surface is very.
Oh yes. Yeah, if you look in that greeny yellow area on the left, oh, you've gone past it. If you see the area on the left,
this one.
Yeah, the light green, lime green area. Yeah. I mean, for instance, that was made by me painting on, I was applying the paint to a plastic bag and just pressing the plastic bag onto the surface of the canvas and pulling it off quite quickly. So you got these fractured lines. And then I was also using paint rollers as well, you know, sort of rolling the paint on and painting on sheets of plastic. And so I getting these strange effects. Yeah, that's right. So painting on top of that was really exciting. And then this area in the blue here, that was done with a spray gun. So this friend of mine gave me these spray guns. He uses, his job is he paints backdrops in films. So he will paint. Some of you may have seen the film Dunkirk by Christopher Nolan, for instance. Well, he painted a lot of the battleships that are in that film
really?
with these spray guns that he lent. Yeah.
I'm
So this
gonna
was the
watch that
first
film
one I
again
did.
now.
Yeah. So it was really hard to, it was very, very hard to control. It's also quite toxic.
Yeah, I seen that in one of your photos you have a mask on your face.
Yeah, yeah. It's a real
So,
mess. You have to,
so tell me, when you were doing these backgrounds, but then when you would come to paint the, you know, the front line, basically the first,
yeah.
the characters, in which, in this case, the flowers, were you needed for the background to be totally dry or not necessarily?
Yeah, mostly, not necessarily, but yes, it helps. Yeah, sure. Sometimes I like the color to be picked up by the surface. It depends what I want, really. You know, I think this one was pretty much dry because a lot of this background was painted with acrylic paint. So the blues and the whites and the greens, they're all acrylic, and then the flower is oil.
Yeah.
So it would have been pretty much dry. Yeah. So yes, I found them a very interesting series to make, really. It really brought back some fun in the studio, you know, playfulness. It's that sort of
Really, with this flower series.
yeah. And you can see from my pictures you're going through, I can see pictures that don't exist still now because I've painted over them or I photographed them at an intermediate stage, you know. So a lot of these paintings here, we took them, the gallery I'm with took them to the Armory Art Fair in New York, and we did a presentation of all the flower paintings, more or less as they're hanging like that in my studio. I just put them up as I would do them, and we kind of recreated that in America, and it was good fun, like a salon hang, you know. But here it starts to get really broken down and abstract, and I really like this painting, but I think a lot of people who follow my work wanted to see more reality in it, and but for me, it's interesting because I like the way flowers are disappearing into this strange chaos, you know.
Were you ever tempted to go totally abstract on your?
But of course, yeah, but it doesn't engage me as much. But to be honest, I do look at a lot of abstract painting. I find a lot of abstract painting exciting and visceral, like listening to some really great heavy metal, you know. It's like a sugar rush for me sometimes, you know.
Do you relate when you work on your that now that you mentioned heavy metal, when you work in the studio, can you relate with a certain type of music as you are painting a certain type of image?
Yeah.
So what kind of music were you listening when
no, I wouldn't actually. No, I maybe not. I do listen to certain types of music when I'm painting. I don't have an image that goes with certain music, though. No, I wish I did. That's a really nice idea, isn't it? You have Vaughan Williams when you're painting a tree in the sky or whatever. Then you have Black Sabbath when you're painting I don't know, a car crash or something. Yeah.
On the same canvas, both of them.
Yeah.
So, but do you listen to Black Sabbath? I like Black Sabbath. So
yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I listen to lots of music. Yeah, Black Sabbath is a favorite. Yeah, definitely. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that, Anka. That's good.
Yeah, but I like the singer even now. He's quite.
Oh yes, yeah. He became a bit of a celebrity in the beginning of reality TV here, didn't he?
Yeah, this is how I end up listening to Black Sabbath, because when his show came up on MTV Reality, I didn't know he was a singer. I know he was
right.
Yeah, I just thought he was a junkie or something.
Absolutely.
He looked quite changed. But then
Yes.
I got into his music, and he's a great singer. I love him.
Absolutely.
Wow, look at this texture here. So I could see, as you were saying, that in this series you let yourself to be maybe less rational as you are
Yeah,
about your realistic painting. I think,
instinctive,
yeah,
you
more
know.
instinctive.
And I'm really proud of this painting here. You see, I mean, that's just a fragment of it, but it was a long journey to create that surface. But it was just really good fun, because if it just looked a bit rubbish the next day, I would just come in and paint over it completely with a
Mhm.
squeegee or something, and create a whole new surface that I couldn't even have predicted. Because when I'm going to paint a hand, for instance, or paint a foot, I kind of know what it's going to look like at the end. When I'm
Yeah.
doing something like this, it was much more open and the roll of the dice, you know. And I really like that. That's why I really enjoy painters who are able to just, for me, they seem to just start with a canvas and they just go, you know, they just paint. And I think that's amazing. I mean, I plan a lot of my work, but I think artists who just seem to just, I don't know if these artists exist, but just go in and there's a figure here and a trick, whatever they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
it just comes out of them. I think that's amazing. I love that.
What
I
didn't
am
you?
able to do that with my drawing, but my painting, I can't do that.
Yes.
More
Well, you are talking here about being like more freestyle painter. Didn't you like encounter this situation now that you had the thing with the broken arm? Isn't it kind of? Didn't you find
yes,
the same
a
feeling,
bit
or it was here? It was happy, and
similar,
now it's
but
more
they're kind of
frustrating.
they're different. Yeah, maybe. The thing is, with these big abstract paintings, you need to have a lot of physical strength, you know, and um, I couldn't do that with just one hand. It's impossible.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there is a lot of accident.
So the left-handed work was much like,
Exactly.
yeah.
So people thought this was painted on a photograph, right?
Well, I've never done that in my life.
But
That's
I
outrageous.
know, but you said that people were asking this, Justin, didn't you like you make a transfer on your canvas and then, go
Never. I've
make
never done. No, no.
it.
That's just years and years of practice. No, no,
Hmm.
absolutely not. People do think that I paint on photographs sometimes, but when you actually see the actual object, you realize it is actual brushstrokes. You know,
Yeah,
that's what figurative painting is as well. There's illusion, isn't it? Yeah.
exactly.
So
Well,
these are all, yeah, background.
I think we have some questions in the chat.
Okay, let's have some questions then.
Well, there are long questions, but please also formulate them and ask ahead, please.
So as Anna's saying, I'm quite curious about the impact your exhibition made during this time of pandemic. Yeah, certainly Turner is a. So what does it say? Are the white-clothed humans in the compositions linked to the medical personnel? Well, yes. The smoke, the blur reminds me maybe peculiarly of Turner. Well, yeah, absolutely, the amorphous gaseous atmosphere. Well, thank you. Do I paint directly on photographs? No, no.
As we just talked
Simply
about.
drawing. Yeah. Are there artists that inspire you, like the subject matter or the technique? Oh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? That's the one. Yeah, there's plenty of artists that I like. I
Justin,
mean,
before
figurative
you
painters.
answer, sorry, these questions
No,
are
carry on.
from students from second year. So just so you know.
Okay. Are there any ones there you want me to answer? You can curate them, Anchor,
No,
as you're the
answer.
boss.
You read them. Just
Yeah.
answer whatever and however you want to.
I mean, well, for instance, like the artists that I admire. I mean, I like figurative painters. I've always liked Neo Rauch, for instance. I've always liked Degas, that whole scene. I've mentioned that I really like abstract painting as well, like de Kooning and people like that. I mean, it depends kind of what mood I'm in, really. I mean, sometimes I have all my books here at home, and I'll be looking at, well, say Goya, for instance. I might be in the mood to look at all his etchings. But then the next day I might be looking at Cassatt's etchings of children and mothers, you know. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. You what's this film you? Oh yes, I remember that film now.
It's a film in your studio, I think.
Yeah, I think I just walked in and filmed it one day. I'm not quite sure why I did that. What have I written?
I pulled out.
Oh yes,
this morning.
I had a studio meeting. Yes.
You mentioned studio tourist, so you were a tourist in your own studio.
Yes, did I say that right? Okay. Well, yes, it's quite nice because I don't have my works out in the studio like this normally. I have them stacked like that. So I was suddenly seeing the work. Oh yeah, there he is.
Tell me.
One of my first jobs as a one of my first jobs as a portrait painter was to paint David Bowie. So yeah, that's a photograph from the time.
And you said he asked me. So he called you up or meet you up? And
yeah, he did. He actually rang me up. He rang up.
He rang you up.
Yeah, I may have
David Bowie. Could you please?
Yeah, because I mentioned I had this painting in the National Portrait Gallery, which was like an advert for my work. I did a portrait of Harold Pinter, the English playwright, and it's in the collection, still is there, and that meant that people could see my work. So one of his art people saw my portrait of Pinter, and David Bowie was looking for someone to paint a portrait of him and his wife Iman. So yes, he did quite literally ring up. Actually, I think what happened first, his art agent rang up first and said, "I have a client who's interested in a picture. How much do you charge?" And I said, £1,000. So they said, "Okay, fine." So then it turned out the client was David Bowie. So I think if I knew it was David Bowie, I would have said my portraits cost £15,000, £20,000. So that was quite clever. But yeah, he rang up, and I think my other half, Kathy, answered the phone, and and off it went. It was very funny. So I went to meet him. No, he came to the studio first. I had it in my first studio in London, which was actually very in the centre of London, a very nice space. He came in a big black limo, and you can just imagine it was just crazy. Yeah. I was like 20, 24 or something. I was really young, So that was kind of strange.
And from all the photos he has with him, this is what he gave you to make a portrait out of him, or this is something you found?
I took this photograph myself, and this is a photograph. This is a photograph made like 25 years later, and the photographs got all wrecked and trashed because this was one of the first times I had to paint a portrait from photographs, not from life, because it was a big commission. Yeah. I did 9 paintings for them in the end, and
9.
Yeah, but I met him about 3 times, I think. So it wasn't long enough to do that many work. So I had to take photographs as references. And I didn't really know how to do that, but I had to because needs must. So I do have a few photographs of him at home and in the attic. It's kind of great. And it's also funny to think that he's younger there than I am now.
Oh, really? I also saw something that escaped while searching through your Instagram. You had also a commission for Nick Cave, which I also really enjoy listening to. Is that true?
No, it's not.
No?
Damn, I wish it was.
But
Did you read that?
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna find that. Look, this one. Painting this to Nick Cave. You mean?
I see. What I meant was I was listening to him. Yeah, that's the music I was listening to.
Well, then then we kind of meet in the music. Like I listen a lot to Nick Cave, so
yes.
So it wasn't a commission.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, that's just the expression I've used. Yes, I see.
Yeah,
I
that's just
think it was that
being
dark stuff.
for English. So, do you have any questions? Any other questions, please? The man is here for you. I have a lot of questions to ask him, but I want to invite you to do it.
Well, we can chat away, and if people are a bit shy or thinking, or it's hard. We can just carry on for a bit if you want. What's the time? How are we doing for time?
Okay. We have a little more over an hour now. So how are you with the time? When you have to finish?
Well, I need to get. I'd say about another half an hour or so. I need to get to the studio for this Bucharest collection.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna chat for more 20 minutes. More 20 minutes.
And just to answer a question someone's asked me, that is a stuffed jackdaw. Yeah.
What is it doing there? Why do you have it?
Well, there's quite a bit of taxidermy in this room. We've got a deer over there, another bird. Yeah. This is the second jackdaw I've had. First one got eaten by moths. Yeah.
Oh, look, we have some questions here.
Okay.
Oh, it's the pigeon. This is what you answer. Okay. What color do you prefer?
I like pink. I quite like pink.
Pink?
Yeah. I like pink, yeah.
Me there.
It depends what the context. I mean, for instance, yesterday I was walking in the park, and it was a very dull day, and everyone was wearing their coats, and these children were running around in bright cadmium yellow hooded jackets, which looked really beautiful in the dark brown grey of this sort of garden I was in. And then I saw another child wearing very pale orange boots and splashing about in a puddle, and they were really beautiful. So in fact, color is about context, really. So I use greens a lot. I love greens. So in fact, I have no favorite color. It's the context that has to be right, I think. Okay, any more questions? Things were there.
Do you doubt, Justin? Do you doubt your narrative? Do you doubt your approach? Do you doubt your reality and the dimension in which?
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, so it's interesting that you asked me that. Yeah, it's of course, I think if I didn't, there'd be something very wrong. I'm constantly questioning.
I don't think that many people actually talk about that, as it's a sign of weakness, to
really?
doubt within this societal reality. You're supposed to know and be confident and but I think it's very.
Right. Do you mean you mean like in an art context, a kind of a macho kind of scene? Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, you're striving for that goal. You kind of I mean, yes, I'm driven, of course, but every time I make a piece of work, it just falls away from me. I'm certain when I'm starting, and it just starts to collapse as soon as I put things together. It crumbles away in front of me, and
I feel like there's a lot of creative energy coming out of doubt, and it shouldn't be looked at as an obstacle, but as something that you can work with and be
That's
pushed.
Very cool. Yeah, I really agree with that. No, you're absolutely right. I think people should talk more about it, and it can be used as a tool for benefit. That takes you somewhere else. You can't move forward unless you doubting and have to adjust and think and problem solve, and somehow find that new place. Otherwise, things would never. You'd stay static, wouldn't you? You'd atrophy. Yeah. No, nice question.
Well, talking about this, Justin, What do you do when think about that we have a lot of young, really young painters to be here. So what would you do if you get stuck, like a sort of writer's block, but in terms of painting? What is this something that you do to pass over that feeling, that mood?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I was a bit like that because I totally messed up something I was doing on Saturday. So what helped me was going for a walk in the park, just leaving the space, just getting out, just compartmentalizing the problem and putting it there, and physically taking yourself somewhere else. I mean, I walk a lot, and it always, as soon as I leave through the door, things start flooding in. When I'm confronted with the subject in front of me, I never move forward. If I'm stuck, so I have to leave the room. And I think there are neurological experiments where something physically happens in your brain when you walk through a door. I think something does happen. The amount of times people walk into a room and they've forgotten what they came in for. I think the same thing happens when you walk out the door into a garden or into a park or just walk down the road. Something frees up, because you'll never, if you've just worked on a painting 6 hours and then it's turned into a disaster, which happens a lot. I would say about half of what I do, I probably paint over easily. It's not going to suddenly solve itself magically after 6 hours. So you have to leave the room, get out, leave the studio, go for a long walk, and then come back in the next day after a night's sleep, and then you can either A, throw it away, which is a really good thing to do, or B, apply clarity and fresh thinking to it. And that mess that you made actually might be rather exciting, and might be you might suddenly realize with clarity is actually pointing to a future for you. So what you thought was bad yesterday actually might be a signpost to a new place for you to explore. Anyway, yeah, there we go.
We have another question from a student.
I do use a palette knife all the time. Many palette knives.
Flavia Lugigan, hi, you mentioned the disruption of the photography in the painting process. Besides the digital intervention, does this happen naturally to you while painting, or is it a conscious effort? P.S. Love your work.
Thank you. I think when I'm painting, I'm always disrupting it. Yeah, with the knives, I'm always pulling the paint around. I'm forever trying to break up. I try to keep a line between the description of what I'm interested in painting, literally the volume, the forms, the drawing. I'm paying attention to that. And I'm paying a lot of attention to how the paint is sitting on the surface and what's happening. And if it's looking really dead, I will take a knife to it. I will lift it off with a rag. I will corrupt it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Sometimes I want the clarity. Sometimes I want the distortion and the something to happen to the paint. When you're presented with a complete image, it's banal and boring. So that's why I try to lift as much paint off as possible. Oh look, here we are. That was Cluj there. Yes, that was. You might recognize some of these. That's Maris's studio, his old studio. Then this is at your art school.
Yeah, this is, the shelves, not there anymore. I mean, the shelves, yes, but not the works.
Not the works, no.
No, the fire department doesn't approve us.
I was going to say.
Yeah,
we had a few fires at art school. Yeah, in those days we could. Yeah.
I have a short question, if there is any.
Of course.
There's no other from the students. Justin, how do you decide if an idea or a subject matter good enough to transform it in a series of paintings, or it should remain only in the sketchbook. One of our previous guests said that we are always hunting for an idea for an exhibition.
Yeah, I find it very hard to find subject matter, actually. It takes a long time, and I find I start quite broadly, and then gradually it focuses in the narratives and the stories and things. That I don't just start with an idea. I can't. I'd never have that kind of inspiration, like that cliched inspiration. That's it. I'm going to paint hazmats today, or I'm going to paint smoke bombs or whatever. It's a very slow journey. That.
So you approach it in narrow circles, getting closer and closer.
Yes, I focus it in. Yeah, I do. Occasionally, like for instance, just seeing the balloons passing by on my Instagram, that was a sudden moment of walking down a street and seeing some balloons outside a restaurant in London, and I took a photograph. I thought that there's something that's really resonates with me there, because it's related to light and color and skin and tension, all that. So very occasionally an object might become of interest to me, like a plastic bag I see in the street, things like this. But actual ideas and stories and concepts, that's a longer journey, really. Yeah, and I wish I had a clearer idea sometimes. Yeah, just to get things moving faster, really. Yeah.
I'm gonna put you because we are approaching the finish of our conversation, like a more technical question. For example, yes, when you want to do your balloons, or but let's say the balloons because you mentioned them. What do you do to really get out the texture and the tension of the material? Because there's a tension, there is a gunflated material, right? So is it?
Yes. Yeah, it's funny because when I started painting balloons, I had no idea how to do it. You know, I had no idea what there was no book saying this is how you paint balloons. But there's loads of books about how to paint a head or paint a flower or something.
Exactly.
I mean, somewhere in this will be a picture of my first balloon painting, but I think it's actually be on my website, I think. But it's just from years and years and years of learning to know what you're looking at. So if you understand what you're looking at, you can deconstruct that situation and reproduce it with these strange mud-like paints, you know, this paste we call paint. So I suppose I had to look at the very darkest points of the balloon and the very lightest points with the highlights and things, and work out what happens in between. It's very strange when you try. It's very easy to see a highlight and very easy to see a shadow. But what happens in that light bandwidth between the two? Mm-hmm. And that light bandwidth is what describes that surface. And also inside that surface, you will see clues about the other side of the surface. And you have to somehow make a decision. What of these visual clues are you going to take to make this balloon? Because you can't take in every single visual information that your brain is receiving, because your eyes are constantly moving about. So you've got to make sure the shape is right. Mm-hmm. And try to find a way how to paint a highlight in an interesting way. I was trying to do that because I didn't want to make it look like it was airbrushed. So I would find a very, very good white. I would put quite a lot of white on for the highlight. Maybe with a knife, a blob, and I would blur it out into the surrounding edges. And then from that, I would understand what next tone I would have to do. And I would gradually build it up like that towards the dark, delineated shape of the balloon. And that kind of gave me a clue about where to go. And of course, the color, something I added to it as well, which was an added layer of complexity, because I invented the color. The balloons I was photographing were just very white or black. There weren't these weird, putrid, rotting flesh colors I wanted to bring to them, the yellows and things. But that was quite hard. So I did use some quite transparent colors with that as well. Yeah, technically it was a challenge, that's for sure. Yeah.
and really, really quick. I can see, well, guys, I've asked you to put the questions even from beginning, but I see only now they are getting inspired. Before you start the painting, do you have a final result in your mind? I think you kind of somehow answered it, but if you want.
Yeah, I think I do. I think I do, but it invariably changes. Yeah, as I was explaining earlier on, the journey of going towards that painting means it gets further away, and the idea I realize is often could be improved when I'm actually painting. So the painting will be different to the original idea in the end. It's rare when a painting finishes as I expected it would be at the start. Yeah.
And another question, I'm gonna sum it up. What do you do, I don't know, when you face a certain critique from the outside or your self-doubt, how do you make it, to pass over this, let's say, mental state that might impair you to paint?
Well, say like bad criticism, you mean? Is that
Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to ignore it and crack on. You just, you maybe speak to some other people. It's worth speaking to several people if you're really worried about something. If you have negative criticism, you've got to take it on board, think about it, reject it, or learn from it. No, nothing else you can do.
You said it perfectly. So reject it or learn from it. Guys, students, pin these words up because they should stick with you. So you don't you manage over time to deal with this, with bad or good critique or yourself critique, auto-criticism. So you manage to move on.
Yes, of course, you do. You have
so to. As an artist, really, you need also a strong mental state, right? I mean,
you do, which is terrible because most artists, including myself, are quite fragile narcissists. I mean, it's kind of difficult, isn't it? It's a hard one. It's another battleground. Self-destructing. Yeah, it's a hard one. But I think certainly talking to your students, need to realize that the life of an artist is very isolated and it's pretty boring and difficult, with occasional bursts of real fun and joy. And it's more difficult now because, of course, we're all isolated and we don't have private views to go to, and all the things that we used to enjoy and come together at parties for friends, exhibitions and things, that's all ended now. So I don't know, it's trickier. Having said that, social media now means being an artist is easier to communicate your ideas to an audience. It's much quicker now. I mean, when we were students, it was 35mm transparencies put in an envelope and sent off to someone, which should just be ignored. You'd never see them again. Now we just put it on, Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and it's great. Exactly. Very powerful tools are available for us all now. Yeah.
Well, guys, if you don't have, we're gonna end with this really quick question, because I ended all the interviews with these questions. Justin, if you have any sort of advice for the young to-be painters / artists.
I think I just said it. Yeah.
You did, but
I did.
As a goodbye, just say another word.
Well, okay, let's have a think.
I mean, what would you do if you look back at you being in the first year of university? What would you say to yourself, to get you carry on?
Well, yeah, I would say don't worry so much, but yeah, don't worry so much. Yeah, but also,
it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think whatever you do, just don't worry. You've just got to really just work hard. You just have. It doesn't come easy. You just have to work. Nothing comes quickly. I mean, I when I went to art school, I couldn't really paint. I could draw quite well, but I couldn't really paint. So I've basically had to teach myself how to do that. And that just comes from working and working and working. And it's pretty simple. That is it. You know?
Perfect.
There's no shortcut. Yeah.
Well,
So don't worry, go to work. Yeah.
Sorry, say that again. It just cut out, Luana.
Yeah. Don't worry, go to work.
Yeah, don't worry, work hard.
Yeah, work hard. Don't worry, work hard. Yeah.
and remember, there are no shortcuts.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but also enjoy it and explore. You know, it's not all. Enjoy, explore, be open, be really open to, you know, be driven, but be open to new experiences and new thinking. It's very easy to go down the railway track on the lines, you know. But you have to learn to look for those chaotic moments and learn from the chaos as well, actually. I think that's something that's quite important. But that comes with maturity, really.
well, Justin, thank you very much for your time and for your kind words.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
You're welcome. It's been good to see you all.
Thank you, Justin. It was nice to see you.
Yeah, it's very good to see you too. I hope we get a chance to come out to Cluj again soon, you know, maybe next year. Because we were hoping we would have really liked to have come this year, but obviously not. Yeah, we need to do it again because it's such a great place, and we really enjoyed meeting you all out there. Yeah.
Just to get rid of this pandemic stuff, and we are
Absolutely.
waiting for you.
Fantastic. Well, till next time then.
well,
Yeah.
I'm going to close the recording now, and thank you all for being here, and especially Justin. You're now forever our friend.
It's lovely to talk to you all. Really been marvelous. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.